The Year of Miss Agnes by Kirkpatrick Hill. Chapter 6. After lunch that first day, Miss Agnes said she needed to find out how much writing we had learned. I was not happy to do this, because I hadn't learned much. She gave us new pencils and paper with lines, and told us all to write our names and the day we were born. The older ones were to write something about themselves, just anything to show Miss Agnes what we could do. We all looked at Bertha because Bertha was so good at writing. Seemed like she was writing all the time. Even before we went to school, she used to get a pencil from old man Anderson, and she'd hunker down by the boxes in the store, and she'd copy the writing. She'd write Olympia beer and Pillsbury flour and anything that was printed on the boxes. She didn't know what the letters said. She just thought they were pretty. Old man Anderson wrote the alphabet the way it goes on a piece of paper for her. "Bertha, you'll be my secretary when you grow up," he told her. She never let loose of that piece of paper. It was always in her pocket. She'd copy the letters in the snow with a stick, or in the mud on the river bank. Bertha was funny that way. Miss Agnes stopped in surprise when she saw Bertha's writing. "Well, Bertha!" She bent to look carefully at each letter. "It would be hard to improve on that," she said. Bertha looked really shining like, having Miss Agnes see what a good writer she was. "I'll teach you how to write cursive now. You're ready." I knew what that was, that curly kind of writing some grown-ups used, just flying across the paper 90 miles an hour. I couldn't wait to learn that, too. Marie looked like she was going to cry. She was 14, but she'd only spent a few months in school off and on. Her mom had all those babies Marie had to take care of when her mom went to help her dad on the trap line. She couldn't write much at all. She put her head down. Miss Agnes walked around and looked at everyone's writing. Charlie Boy and Selina could write their names, but that was all. None of us were very good at writing, except Bertha. Miss Agnes took a roll of masking tape from her shelf and put a strip on each desk. She wrote the alphabet in printing on that strip with a pen. She wrote the big letters and then the little letters. Then she taped a paper on our desk with our name written in perfect letters. That was to help us remember. For Bertha, she wrote the letters in cursive. Then she started to show the rest of us on the blackboard what each letter was supposed to look like, starting with the vowels, because she said you used one of those in every word, so the vowels had to be really good. Like if on a shopping list you wrote an O so it looked like an E, you might get a pet instead of a pot. She made it funny, showing us how awful letters looked when they were made silly. Miss Agnes called a sloppy O a hairy O, because when you don't write an O right, it looks like a little face with one hair sticking up on top. We really laughed at that. And she said the nose of an E was supposed to be sharp enough to prick your finger on. Then she drew a finger getting pricked by that sharp point on the E. We never tried to do it right before. We just wrote any which way. So we were surprised to find Miss Agnes was going to be so picky. She said if we wrote our letters sloppy, she would give us back our work and make us do it over. You'd think it would make me mad to do that, but it made me glad. Like when my grandma makes me do something over and over till I get it right. I feel like she's going to make sure I learn it good, and so I don't feel mad. That's how I felt now. We practiced on our paper, making sharp-nosed E's and perfect O's that weren't hairy, and straight I's with the dot right smack on top, not drifting away somewhere. Charlie Boy made us laugh because he was practicing so hard his tongue was sticking out. It was fun the way we did it, and I wanted to make every letter just perfect. I could write as perfect as Miss Agnes and Bertha if I just practiced. While we practiced our printing, Miss Agnes read to us for half an hour, walking up and down in front of the windows while the snowflakes came tumbling down. That kind that's real big and slow falling. It was a story called Robin Hood, about a man who stole money from the rich people and gave the money to the poor people who needed it. It was an olden time story from when people had bows and arrows. When Miss Agnes read to us, she did all the people in different voices, and we forgot right away it was just reading. It got real, like being inside the book. I didn't want Miss Agnes to ever stop reading. I felt as if I really was in that dark, deep forest with trees taller than you ever heard of, and when she stopped, I felt shocked, as if I'd come out of a dream. The boys were all excited to think of people fighting with big, fat sticks like that, like when Robin Hood and Little John were on the bridge. We don't have any big sticks around here, just spruce poles. And we all thought it was funny because the book had a Little John and we had a Little Pete. And they were both really big, not little. When she put the book back on her desk, Miss Agnes took one of the big pieces of paper and made a picture of Robin Hood. She could draw really good and fast, too. Zip, 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 and there was a man. We all laughed when she made him have long underwear with funny moccasins that had pointed toes and a short shirt and a hat like Gilbert Dendoff was wearing when he came home from the army, except Robin Hood's hat had a feather in it. Then she took a box of colored chalk and colored him in. Green clothes, because that was like the merry men's uniform, and that was Robin Hood. Marie wanted a picture of Maid Marian. Marie was all worried that Robin wouldn't see his girlfriend again because he was an outlaw, but Miss Agnes wouldn't tell us any of the story ahead of time, not even a hint.